All right, so 7.4. It's kind of a bridge-like section. Between the beginning of the chapter and the end of the chapter. It's actually, for the most part, a fairly easy section. So the title is Solving Polynomials in Factored Form. We're going to do the second part of the chapter is all on with something called factoring. But after this section, we're going to review everything again and then take a test, and then we'll do a completely separate unit on factoring. But so the problems that we've seen so far, in the last few days, look something like this, and then we multiplied them out. So today we're going to be solving them, which has an equal 0. When it has an equal sign, now we can solve something. And it's actually really simple. You're just going to take each set of parentheses and make them equal to 0 and solve each thing separately. So we get 4 and -3. Okay, it doesn't matter what's in the parentheses. Okay, so you could have, 2x minus 4 and 3x, plus 5 equals 0. Okay, so the solving will be a little bit longer on a problem like this because we have that number in the front. But so plus 4 divide by 2, and then on this side minus 5 divide by 3, and we end up with a fraction. And if you end up with a fraction, that'll be the end of it, so you don't need to worry about well, what do I do? It's a fraction. That's okay. It's just your answer. Okay, so it's kind of like saying each part equals 0. So sometimes you'll have a problem that might look like that. And so this x in the front, well, it's still a part. Well, there's nothing to solve on that first one, so that's nice and easy. So we get -6 and 0. Okay, so your first, well, let me do one more just to make sure we, so even if it had a number in the front, it's still 2x equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. And it's okay, well, what's 0 divided by 2? Still 0. Okay, plus 5. Okay, so it doesn't matter if there's a number in the front. We're still going to end up with 0. If there's no plus or minus, the answer is going to be 0 every time. If there's a plus or minus, then you got to solve the rest of it. If there were 3 sets of parentheses, then there are 3 different little parts. If there was something in the front and then 2 parentheses, well, the something in the front is still part of it. There will be 3 different parts, so there will be 3 answers. Okay? Like that, where you have the parentheses already kind of worked out. And most of your assignment is just simply doing what I just did. Okay? Okay, then toward the end, maybe a little bit past half now that I look at it, but you're going to have the directions that say factor the polynomial. Okay, and you could have something like this. Okay, and so the question you're going to ask yourself is, what do they have in common? Okay, that's going to be a phrase that, what's in common, that you're going to hear a lot more as we move through the chapter, in the latter part of the chapter. We're going to do a whole big thing on factoring. We're just doing a small piece right now. Okay, so first we look at 6 and 21. And what do they have in common? Another way of saying is like, what can we divide? The biggest number we can divide into both of them, and that would be 3. Okay, and then you look at the x squared and the x, and we say, well, what do they have in common? Well, there's 2 x's on the left and there's 1 x on the right, so they each have at least 1. So I'm going to put that like over here. Okay, and then, excuse me, I'm actually going to divide. 6 divided by 3 is 2. X squared means x times x. There's 2 x's there. Well, if I took one of them out in the front, then there's 1 left. Okay, and then I do the same thing over here. Minus 21 divided by 3 is 7. And there's an x here, and if I took it out, then it's gone. And so this is the answer. That's factored. Okay, and if you're not sure, like, well, did I do it right? Did I not do it right? Well, if you did it right, you should be able to do what we've done the last few days. 3x times 2x, 6x squared, 3x times negative 7, negative 21x. You should get back to the original problem. Okay, so it is possible to check your answer. You don't have to do it, but it's not a bad idea to kind of just double check like mentally. Okay. So we could have one like this. Okay, so 20 and 30, I could divide both of those by 10. That's the biggest possible. I could divide by 5, I could divide by 2, but I always want the biggest number possible. Okay, and then x to the third power means there's 3 x's. X to the second power means there's 2 x's, so they each have at least 2. So I'm going to what's called take out an x squared. Okay, and then kind of divide back. 20 divided by 10 is 2. If there were 3 x's and I took 2 out, there's 1 left. 30 divided by 10 is 3. There's 2 x's, x squared here, and I took them out, then there's none left. That's our answer. Okay, and if you want to multiply it back out, you'll get back to like the black part. Okay, so you'll have 3 of those to just factor, and then you'll have 3 that you have to factor and then solve. So the only difference to the solving one is it would say equal 0. So like this last one, it would say equal 0. And then you do 10x squared equals 0 and 2x plus 3 equals 0. And this one, you might like think like, remember what I said, if there's no plus or minus, the answer is 0. If you divide by 10, 0 divided by 10 is 0. The square root of 0 is 0. Like it's going to be 0 every time. Then this one, you have to solve it like all the way out. Okay. The last problem will look something like this. And the directions will say factor and solve. So before you can factor, we need everything to be equal 0. So I can't combine those together. It's just moving it to the other side. Oh, 28. Okay, so it needs to be these things equal 0 in order to start. So then, okay, what do they have in common? 4 and 28. I can divide them both by 4. This is 2 x's because of x squared. That's 1, so they each have 1 x in common. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. I don't have to write the 1. There's 2 x's. I took 1 out, so there's 1 left. Minus 28 divided by 7 or 4 is 7. There's an x, but I took it out. Okay, and then you can do each thing equals 0. So I get 0 and 7. Okay, so most of the assignment is already set up for you. Then when you get to problem 25, you'll have to start factoring and then solving them. Okay, so this is the last section that we're going to do, but we are going to have a quiz on Monday. So over the weekend, you need to study the first 4 sections. Okay, the adding and subtracting polynomials, naming them, monomial, binomial, trinomial, the degree, highest exponent. Add up the exponents on some of them, but the highest exponent is usually the degree on more than one term. The multiplying binomials, multiplying special cases, and the solving stuff. Okay, so quiz on Monday next week, and then we'll review and take a test at the end of the week. Okay? All right, have a great day, and we'll see you next week.